I'm Dr. Mollie Marti, and welcome to Resiliency Matters. Today we are speaking with Eileen McDargh, CEO, that's Chief Energy Officer of the Resiliency Group, and author of 7 books. Welcome, Eileen.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you.
So let's get on the same page at the front end. What is your working definition of resilience?
Okay, and that's really important because I disagree with the dictionary. If you open up the dictionary, it basically says it's the ability of a strained object when the pressure is off to resume its original position. Or if I ask anybody, I say, well, it means bounce back. Well, wrong. That's fine if you're a tree, or you're a piece of steel that bends, but human beings do not go back. You cannot enter the same river twice. So my definition of resilience is to grow through challenge or opportunity so that you end up wiser, smarter on the other side. No growth, no resiliency. And at the base of it is energy management. Do I have the mental, emotional, physical hardiness, the energy to keep on keeping on? And also notice, Marty, that I said it's both challenge as well as opportunity. We think of resilience as what happens to us when things are, oh my God, I gotta be resilient. But we also need resilience when we have a great opportunity because it requires a lot of our energy. So like when you do your wonderful work and you go to Africa, that's a challenge and an opportunity. So that's my definition.
Excellent. And I know from our conversations and time together, it's very consistent with Worldmaker's definition, which is the capacity to prepare for, so that's those opportunities, prepare for, adapt to, and grow through adversity. So,
no wonder I love you.
Yeah, I figured we're singing the same song, sister. Okay, so your latest book, because I mentioned 7 books, and the latest one is Burnout to Breakthrough, Building Resilience to Refuel, Recharge, and Reclaim What Matters Most. So let's talk about burnout. Maybe define that, talk about symptoms, causes.
Okay. Burnout is not a new word. It was actually coined back in the 70s by Dr. Herbert Freudenberger. And basically, I think his original definition is exactly what it is to wear oneself out by excessively striving to reach some unrealistic expectation imposed upon by yourself or society. So that notion about wearing oneself out, which, by the way, you can do in a nonprofit by giving, and not pulling back and taking care of yourself. So it is that notion of being stressed to the max that you can't grow through. The symptoms are all over the board. And in fact, that idea of burnout is becoming more and more prevalent. Was it the 2019, the World Health Organization declared burnout basically a global pandemic, that it wasn't just limited to in the United States, but it was everywhere. So it's a massive issue. The symptoms range everything from obviously exhaustion to being disinterested in the work that you used to love, lacking a sense of humor, finding yourself unattached to people, to places, feeling this irritability that comes across that you never thought you would have before. And so the symptoms are rather wide, but at the end of the day, what you're basically saying is, I don't want to do this anymore. I've had it.
And so how is burnout related to resilience?
Well, if you think about resilience as being energy management, and if I've just depleted all my resources, which is what burnout is, then how do I get those resources back? So what is it that will give me energy? What depletes my energy? And it's only until we step back individually as well as organizationally to say, what is it that's going on? And remember, my definition was to respond to an unrealistic expectation imposed upon by yourself or society. So, for example, the very first gentleman that I interviewed for my book, Hamza Khan, his expectation for himself was that he had to work, first generation from India. I have to prove myself. This guy worked 3 different jobs, hardly ever slept. And on day 3, with about 2 hours sleep, and denying, by the way, how he was feeling, walked into a restroom, passed out, and woke up 12 hours later. This can sound terrible, in a pool of vomit. He did not want to acknowledge what he was doing. And it's really taken him some time. He's come full circle, and it's an amazing presenter, and it's a great book on burnout too. But so when you think about resilience, he was not willing at that point in time to step back and say, what am I doing? And why am I doing this? And what are the voices in my head that I'm listening to? In fact, Mollie, every one of the case studies, to more or less degree, their inability to step back and say, what is it I'm listening to, was at the base root of everything. Whether I have to make my father happy, whether I'm not going to be a good person unless I, work this incredible way, I'll be a terrible mother or father, you name it. So it's really stepping back to say, what in the world am I saying to myself is the first place?
That's so important with individuals, that self-awareness, that becoming aware of our narratives and then challenging those. Anything else you want to say about that process, looking at individuals? Because you also mentioned corporations, and I want to go there. But what are some things for individuals listening that they can be doing?
Well, I think the first thing is time out, just like you do on a ball field. Time out. You got to stop. If you came up to a railroad track, there's a sign that says, if it doesn't have one of those ding, 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 it says stop, look, and listen. And I think that's all we have to do. We have to stop, look, and listen. And by the way, this is not one of those things where, okay, I'm resilient, I'll have it forevermore. No, because stuff happens all the time. In fact, Mollie, tomorrow, I'm leaving to go on my own personal retreat so that I can stop, look, and listen. What is it that I'm doing to myself now? How can I generate more energy for my work? What is it that's depleting my energy? So by going away, and somebody will say, well, I can't go away. I got 5 kids and I got a job and I got all this other stuff. Even if you take 5 minutes and breathe and say, okay, what matters right now in this place that I can do as an individual? And of course, we all know there's a correlation with nutrition, sleep. Hello. We are one of the most sleep deprived nations in the world. Exercise, this is the engine that drives the locomotive. I don't take care of this engine, it can't go anywhere. So that's just a really quick overview of what individually we could do.
Excellent. And if we have managers tuning in to this conversation, what might they do within their organization to help prevent burnout or support restoration?
Well, first and foremost, managers have to become courageous. And when I say courageous, that means asking the people whom you manage, what's that team around you? How are you doing? What is it that we're asking you to do that is overload? Because I think we don't ask that. And we don't ask them, what do you think we should be doing differently? There's so much waste that goes on in organizations, and it's waste of human energy. I remember this was years ago, but it has just struck me. There was a gentleman with one of the telecoms who one of his tasks was to compile this massive report. And he had it disseminated throughout the organization. It took him 3 full days to do it. Finally, somebody got a very bright idea and asked the people who got that report, do you read it? Nobody read it. The guy was wasting 3 full days doing a report that nobody read. Now that might sound rather, well, that was a one-off. Au contraire, there's a lot of stuff that goes in an organization that consumes human energy and time that does not need to be done. And the courageous manager says, what are we doing that we shouldn't be doing? And what other ideas do you have? And then to shut up and listen.
And I think that's something I just had a meeting on that this morning. We actually do that every Monday in our organization, ask those and tweak and refine and do our important and urgent and get on that same page. because, yeah, you can fall into those tasks that you think need to be done or they've always been done. So there's a benefit of kind of starting fresh with that. So let's talk about the bigger piece of managing a toxic work environment. Do you truly believe that we can create culture change around burnout and restoration? And what does that look
That's, in many ways, that's a loaded question.
like?
We've got a lot of toxicity going on. Now, I am sitting in the United States. There's a ton of toxicity that's going on right now where we are. And I think in order to create a culture in which people want to be there, number one, it has to have meaning for everyone that's in there. Now, that doesn't mean it's the same meaning, but what makes this job meaningful? If it has no meaning to you, and maybe the meaning is just right now, I'm thrilled to death that I can feed my family. So how do I create meaning? How do I value people? How do I learn to say, really, I'm grateful for you? Because that's another thing. If I don't feel validated in what I do, why am I doing this? So meaning, validation, and then this ability to say, how do we constantly make what we do better for all of the humans involved in our enterprise?
I remember when you were choosing the name on the title on this last book, and you put it out for vote. And I want to repeat the title of your book, Burnout to Breakthrough, Building Resilience to Refuel, Recharge, and Reclaim What Matters Most. And I was a big advocate of that, reclaim what matters most. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Sure. When I say reclaim, it's to come back to that which is most meaningful to us, what really matters most. And so, for example, I quit the last job I had and started my own organization 40 years ago because what I was being asked to do wasn't meaningful to me. It didn't matter. I didn't care whether some CEO got his picture on the cover of USA Today or Time magazine, or I didn't care. I was getting paid for it. I was good at it. By the way, what matters most isn't necessarily what you're good at. It's what resonates most inside. I can write press releases until the cows come home. I don't want to do it. They don't matter. So it is that sense of what matters most is what's meaningful to me at this time in my life.
Good point. We'll pick up there because it changes over time. More about addressing burnout and building resilience when we come back. Stay tuned.
Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At Mediacom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared. And you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Not all internet is priced this good. Switch to Extreme and go super fast for as low as $19.99 a month for a year. Oh yeah, hook up your home with powerful Wi-Fi, 99.99% reliability, and speeds that are FCC proven to be faster than advertised. Not all internet is priced this good. Switch today and get speeds starting at 100 meg for as low as $19.99 a month for a year. Call 844-EXTREME2 for details.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it. go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Welcome back to Resiliency Matters. Today we are speaking with Eileen McDargh, an award-winning speaker, author, and consultant. Eileen, we're talking about burnout, and we just wrapped this last conversation, and you emphasized this phase in your life, right, where you are right now, resilience over time, burnout over time. Can you bring that home for us?
Well, the reason I say it's important about this phase in our life is when in my first book, a million years ago, Work for a Living and Still Be Free to Live, I created a metaphor which is still valid today. And as to see our lives not as this balance, and we use the word balance, and the implication is the pan scale of justice. Everything's supposed to be equal. Life is never equal. That is a dumb, stupid word. So don't even say the word balance. Instead, think of sailing. And if you're in a little sailboat, a one-person sailboat, when I was a kid growing up in Florida, if you go out in this little boat, when the wind shifts, you got to shift. And you come about, and you have to stay connected to the most important parts of your boat: the tiller, the sheet, the rudder that's at the end of at the tiller, and you're also, it's a good head of wind, you're hanging on with your toes so that you don't go over. But when the wind shifts, we have to learn to come about. So when I say the phase in our life, stuff changes. Remember I said you can't enter the same river twice? Let me give you an example. To stay connected with the most important parts of my life, I took care of my mom for her last 6 years of her life. That was a radical shift in my sailboat. Did I abandon my work? Did I abandon my husband, my family? No. And did I give as much energy to them as I did to my mom? No. Because at that phase of my life, what was most important was how I helped mom live the last 6 years of her life. So when you have a little kid, you have a baby, that's a whole different energy demand than when you have a teenager. The energy demand for a baby is you don't get any sleep. The energy demand for a teenager is like, oh my God, what happened to that cute little baby? They became this crazy teenager. So I think it's really important to sit back and say what really is important at this phase in my life as I navigate the winds of change, and how am I connected to that which is most important for me right now. Does that make sense?
It certainly does. And I'm thinking what an opportunity a global pandemic brought to us. Some have taken advantage of that opportunity, some not, but to ask that question and to have a little more space to evaluate.
I think that's a wonderful point that you brought up, because as horrible as the pandemic was, terrible, it also made, I think, many of us step back and say, whoa, what's really important at this phase of my life? And you see people, when they talk about the Great Resignation, it doesn't have to do with money, I don't think, though you might feel devalued. It says, if I got a limited amount of time here, what do I want to do with this? And so we make a decision not to waste that which is most precious. So it is to find that which is most meaningful to us, to refuel, recharge, and reclaim what matters.
And then on the bigger picture, societally, right, it gave us a whole new perspective of who are our essential workers and the inequities and right, all of that was right in front of us, and yet
Exactly.
with fresh eyes.
And what we've done, what the pandemic did is it ripped the curtain away, and you go, oh my gosh, how did we get to this place? We didn't honor healthcare workers the way we should have. And now all of a sudden we have a shortage of healthcare workers. Do you think that happened overnight? No. It's because we didn't value the work that they did and encourage them to enter those kinds of professions. And so now we're stretched very thin. And burnout is huge within the healthcare environment. So yeah, it's a wake-up call.
It is. It's a wake-up call. And we'll keep focus on certainly challenges and opportunities within that.
Right.
I really appreciate how you share your personal stories. And I know as a speaker and as a consultant and as a friend, you do that. Have you ever personally experienced burnout? And if so, what did that look like?
You know, Mollie, I write what I need to learn. I write for me first. I don't write for a general audience. So when I wrote my first book, Work for a Living and Still Be Free to Live, was when I was working for this PR firm and doing all this stuff that did not feed my heart. And so I quit. And when I quit, I needed to figure out how to refuel, recharge, and reclaim what matters, which is actually when I started my own consulting practice, because I thought I need to have some more control over my life. And I don't care about this business over here. I want to do work that is meaningful. So that was the first burnout. I think I could, how do I count the ways in which we go through being overextended? In fact, I thought about that last night, knowing that we were going to have this conversation. And my head kept going through all of the different organizations and places that I've traveled to speak, most of which I loved, but it also came at a price. When you're on the road, there's a price for that. And the price is what's back at home. And so at this phase of my life, Mollie, I have determined I'm not going to travel the way I used to. You know, my precious husband of 42 years, I know I have limited time. So I want to make sure that I spend more attention to him than I do with how many ways can you go speak and be a keynoter. That makes sense.
Oh, certainly. And I know a lot of our viewers, speaking of spouses, you know, partners, significant others, there are many listeners and viewers who are in a home with a partner who is experiencing burnout. Yeah. What is your advice for how do we help someone else?
Well, one of the greatest things we can do for each other is to listen with empathy. And when I say listen with empathy, it's not necessarily with solutions. The solutions often have to come from the individual, but to say, you know, I'm really concerned. Please tell me what's going on. How do you think I can help you? And they might say, there's nothing you can do. Okay. I just want to know. I'm here for you. And by the way, George, I'm going to make you a really great dinner tonight, and you're going to have to sit and eat the whole darn thing because nutrition is really important. And the other thing, George, I'm making it up, George, I want us to walk every day. Are you willing to do that with me? Because I need to get exercise. And I think that would really help you too. Would you be willing to do that? So what I'm trying to do is to place myself in the coach position where I don't want to solve the problem. I want to coach the person. And the best way to coach a person is to listen and then reflect back like a mirror, reflect back what it is that you've heard. Because I think people can come up with their own solution, but maybe we can also add, particularly if you're in a marriage, in a relationship with a significant other, you can ask them to help you, like the exercise, like the nutrition, that can end up helping them too.
Nice. So I want to circle back to energy management. You talked about that. It's such an important process. So not just a phrase. Talk about the components of energy.
Okay, I think there are four: adaptability, agility, laughability, and alignment. The first one, adaptability, is a willingness and the ability to step back and say, in how many different ways can I respond to this situation? When we think we only have one way, we're stuck. It's called, what we really want is requisite variety. Requisite variety says that the organism with the greatest number of responses to any given situation is the one that survives. So if you and I were going to play chess, Mollie, and you knew 6 chess moves and I only knew 1, you're going to win because you've got more moves than I do. So it means a willingness not only to ask myself, but to go out and seek help from other people. What do you see? How's another way that I could respond to this? So it also means then searching for what I think of as intelligent optimism. Intelligent optimism is where you take what at face value looks terrible, horrible, and how do you reframe it in a way that allows you to see some other possibilities. So, for example, I'll use myself when I was caring for mom. It's a terrible situation, right? I won't go into all the different things that were wrong, but there was a lot. Intelligent optimism was stepping back and saying, how do I reframe what's going on with mom so that I see what is possible? And my reframe was, what a great opportunity I have to get to know mother in a way different way than when I was, quote, just her daughter. What a great opportunity do I have to bring my grandchildren in to get to know a little bit of something about their grandmother. So this ability of reframing is really important. So adaptability is really looking at things in many ways and the willingness to seek for help. Agility is speed coupled with wisdom. How fast can I understand something and what can I do differently? So I like to say that one of the things we can do is develop the gift of horse sense. Horse sense is the ability to say, nay, or whoa, as the case may be. See, sometimes what gets us into that burnout is that we keep going, yes, 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 I'll take it on, I'll take it on. And we can't take it on. Agility has to, adaptability, agility, laughability is the sense of humor. It is said that humor is the shortest distance between two people. And I think humor sometimes gives us that intelligent optimism. So when I was taking care of mom, 1 minute she's dying, next minute she's not. She's dying, she's not. She's dying, she's not. So I called her Yo-Yo Ma. Yo-Yo Ma helped me get a sense of perspective. So I think the more that we can laugh and play is a wonderful energizer. Whatever we can do to play, whatever that looks like. And then alignment has to do with what we talked about earlier in the first segment. Am I lined up with that which is most meaningful to me? And Mollie, it's your why. The bigger question of why. You know, Mark Twain said the two greatest times of your life are when you were born and when you discover why. And in the work that you do, Mollie, I think you know your why.
Certainly do, and thank you for helping guide our viewers from your place of why and you living so vibrantly. And I've been smiling. I know the camera's been on you, but as you talk about play and the humor, how important it is. So thank you for always bringing that to our conversations as well. And thank you, viewers, for joining us today on MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.